Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to spoilers for the upcoming 3 weeks of The Young and the Restless, August 25th to September 12th, Lily Winters will be grappling with her actual feelings for Kane Ashby, while Phyllis Summers will prepare for a masterful plan. Let's discuss what's planned for YNR, since there will also be some wedding preparation. Lily will question Holden Novak over the week of August 25th to 29th, but she won't learn anything more about Kane's plans in Genoa City. Although Lily will keep pushing Kane away, she will be privately struggling with her true affections and all of their shared memories. In the meantime, Victor Newman will use blackmail to force Kane to join him in opposing Jabot. However, Victor might not want to get overconfident in his position of advantage. Kane may eventually surprise Victor by enlisting Amanda Sinclair to assist him in making some audacious decisions. Until then, Victoria Newman will be concerned about the possibility of destruction in Claire Newman's friendship with Kyle Abbott. Claire will press Kyle for the full story since she can't get over her worries about what actually transpired between him and Audra Charles in France. Since that's the narrative he recently sold to Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins Abbott, Kyle might alter his account of events from "nothing happened" to "it was just one kiss." In actuality, Kyle repeatedly kissed Audra while he was wrapped in a towel, so Claire's impression of what transpired is undoubtedly inaccurate. The romance between Kyle and Claire can be ruined if everything blows up in the end. There will be more trouble for this pair in the future, but Kyle will strive to maintain his relationship by doing something bold. Nate Hastings might change his mind and try to get Audra back together. Even though Nate was spot on about Audra's deceit, she denied everything and left him because he assumed the worst. Now that he's beginning to doubt if he handled things properly, Nate might approach Audra for forgiveness. Billy Abbott will be over with some crucial news for Jack. As scheduled, Billy will play some espionage games and report back on what he has discovered regarding Kane's plans. They will need to be cautious of one another, though, as Kane is no more trustworthy than Billy. Jack will score Billy's intelligence and then do some brainstorming during the week of September 1st to 5th. Jack will take all necessary precautions to preserve his family's history since he cannot afford to let Jabot be attacked. There may be further reason for Sharon Newman to be concerned about Mariah Copeland and the potential for her marriage to be failing. Will Sharon notice Tessa Porter and Daniel Romalotti Jr.'s developing relationship? Even Mariah saw that Daniel and Tessa appeared cozier than she had expected. Keep an eye out to see if Daniel and Tessa will act on their growing feelings, because it won't be shocking if they share a kiss eventually. Given that Lauren Fenmore Baldwin promised Christine Blair 3 different bridal gowns, there may be some wedding preparations over the week of September 8th to 12th. Christine might decide on one before her wedding to Danny Romalotti in October. Christine might eventually remind Daniel of the significance of preventing Phyllis from attending the ceremony, as he has also been assigned that responsibility. If Phyllis and Amanda disagree on how to best assist Kane in the interim, their friendship may become more strained. As Kane requested, Phyllis will also become an AI specialist, which could lead to new orders and a chance for her to make a great impression with her newly acquired skills. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, the upcoming 3 weeks will be filled with highs and lows. Stay in for updates on all the action. When she set her mind to anything, few people in Genoa City could outsmart Phyllis, who had always been a lady who was better at the game than most. She had an excellent approach, not just a brilliant one. She was skilled at foreseeing actions before they occurred, challenging those who believed they were aware of the truth, and turning even the tiniest opportunity into an apparent win. Phyllis's fiery temper and impetuous nature sometimes led people to underestimate her, yet beneath it all was a razor-sharp mind. Because of this, when the stakes were higher than ever, she trusted her gut and devised a strategy that might turn the tide in her favor. Nobody anticipated how her plan would have an impact on Lily and Kane's lives, particularly since the town's attention was divided between secrets, conflicting emotions, and the delicate planning of a wedding that was already fraught with tension. For weeks, Lily had been putting on a brave front, pretending her heart was steady, laughing when people expected her to laugh, and smiling when she had to. She didn't want to acknowledge the tempest that lay behind those smiles, not even to herself. She claimed to have moved on from Kane and that their relationship was over, but the reality was never quite so clear. It was the aching that reminded her of what they had shared, of the way he looked at her when no one else was present, of the vows they had once murmured in the dark, and it came to her late at night when she was alone. She assured herself that she was stronger, self-sufficient, and ready to forge ahead without him. However, something inside her crumbled a little more each time his name was mentioned and his presence touched her well-built barriers. And Phyllis knew how to take advantage of that in her own clever and possibly risky way. Phyllis had seen the glint in Lily's eyes, the hesitancy in her voice, and the way that deep-seated emotions had a way of resurfacing when Kane was brought up. Phyllis was motivated by the conviction that emotions were always the most effective instruments in any plan, not necessarily by malice. For his part, Kane was haunted by his own ghosts. He tried to project stability by carrying himself with assurance, but in reality, his heart had never completely let go of Lily either. He made an effort to divert his attention, sometimes with business and other times with short-lived relationships, but none of it was successful. No matter how hard he tried to keep her out of his thoughts about the future, Lily's face kept coming back. He recalled how her voice grew softer as she called his name, and how her laughter filled a room. He was haunted by the betrayals, the grief, and the mistakes, but they also bound him to her in ways he couldn't reverse. Kane was unable to ignore the pull within himself as Genoa City was alive with rumors about the impending wedding, which was supposed to be a celebration but was instead turning into a platform for silent rivalries and hidden truths. He became increasingly curious about Lily's true feelings and whether there was still something for them beneath all the hurt as the date drew nearer. From the sidelines, Phyllis could see the fissures in both of them. When Lily walked into a room, she saw Kane's long looks and his nearly uncontrollable pauses. She observed how Lily's gaze slid away any time Kane got too close, and how her anxious hands fidgeted with her glass. These kinds of nuances were opportunities rather than merely telltale signs, and Phyllis thrived on them. And with her skillful approach, the chances were crucial. She knew that time was everything. People would become defensive and the tension would dissolve if she pushed things too quickly. One word, one glance, or one well-placed suggestion could send everything reeling in her direction, though, if she waited for the right time and allowed her feelings to simmer until they were too hot to handle. For Phyllis, this was about control, about changing the power dynamics in Genoa City so that she was the one standing tall when the dust fell, not just romance or enduring sentiments. All of this was set against the bright backdrop of the wedding preparations, which obscured the underlying currents. Fittings, tastings, and rehearsals were filling up every hour, the venue was being decked with flowers, and guest lists were being whispered about in corners. On the surface, it appeared to be happiness, custom, and a gathering of people to celebrate love. However, anyone who had spent enough time in this town understood better. In Genoa City, weddings were never easy. They were battlegrounds masquerading as fairy tales, where alliances were changed with a single vow and secrets were revealed. Everyone else brought their own tales, agendas, and scars into the room as the bride worried over the little things and the groom pretended not to be overwhelmed. The preparations were particularly difficult for Lily. Although she told herself that she was thrilled for the pair and wished them luck, every piece of polished glass and lace ribbon served as a reminder of what she had lost and what she still desired. Even though he didn't show it, Kane saw it too. He observed her from a distance, noting how her smile wavered when she believed no one was watching and how she simultaneously seemed too close and too far away. It roused something he had attempted to suppress, something both perilous and optimistic. The pull, the magnetic power that pulled them back no matter how many times they'd vowed they were done, he wondered if she felt it too. Cain had to resist the need to speak up during those times, to break the stillness, and to insist on knowing what was truly going on in her heart. Uncertain whether the pandemonium of the wedding was the proper moment, whether Lily would push him away once more, and whether he could handle being rejected again, he held back. But Phyllis did not hesitate in the same way. She was already setting the stage, ensuring that the appropriate individuals were present and that the discussions proceeded as planned. Her approach was successful even though it was never clear. A small seed put in someone's mind, a remark here, a suggestion there. She was aware that feelings would be so high by the wedding day that even the slightest spark could cause a blowout. And she wanted precisely that. Because Phyllis knew she could gain an advantage amid the commotion, and she didn't simply thrive on drama. And she was prepared to give that edge, whether it meant revealing Lily's actual feelings for Cain, calling off a wedding that never should have happened, or ensuring her own position in Genoa City's changing dynamics. Through a series of intricate rituals and painstaking preparations, the raw materials of individual lives are supposed to be forged into the unified entity of a married couple during the days leading up to a wedding. This time is known as the crucible, a time of extreme pressure. Joy and anxiety are inseparable at this period of intense feeling, and even the tiniest detail might represent the greatest fear or hope. The dynamics of friendship and family are both a vital source of support and a potential cause of significant conflict in this unstable environment. An analysis of the intricate relationship between Lily's actual feelings about the Cain and Phyllis's skillful strategy, all against the backdrop of hectic wedding planning, reveals a profound story about performance, autonomy, and the frequently painful discrepancy between how we are seen and how we want to be seen. The way that Phyllis handles the situation, and life in general, in the delicate setting of the wedding is essentially intentional. Her presumptive knowledge stems from a deep-rooted conviction in the ability of preparation, presentation, and social graces to smooth over life's bumps rather than from malice. Her approach is a well-planned structure based on optimization and control concepts. The wedding is more than just a party, it is a project, the most significant project, and its success is determined by how well it is executed and how harmoniously it is seen by others. Everything is a variable that needs to be controlled, from the arrangement of the flowers to the main player's emotional reactions. The intricacy of Lily's Cain enters this well-tended ecology. For Phyllis, the Cain is a staging element rather than primarily a medical tool or personal assistance. The visual narrative of effortless joy and excellent health that she is so passionately curating is disrupted by this object. Therefore, her approach is to control the Cain's influence on the wedding's aesthetic and social story rather than comprehending its importance for Lily. She could recommend a more elegant Cain that matches the wedding's color palette or advise key times for its usage or non-use, like during the ceremony when a family member could handle it discreetly or during the photos. The Cain is, in her opinion, an appearance issue, and she specializes in resolving appearance-related issues. This tactic is used with a tone of benign authority, a I-know-best mentality that is hard to immediately dispute because it is wrapped in words of concern and care for the event's success as a whole. In every way, she is the master of ceremonies, and her Cain approach is just one element of a bigger, more comprehensive plan to portray a flawless day free from the messed-up reality of human need or fragility. The emotional, visceral reality of Lily's actual feelings regarding her Cain stands in sharp contrast to the strategic, outside perspective. Phyllis's reductive approach is utterly unable to capture the depth, complexity, and emotional depth of her attachment with the object. On one level, the Cain serves as a harsh, everyday reminder of a limitation and the loss of a former, more mobile, possibly carefree self. It is an unwanted companion, a representation of a body that has somehow deceived her. Its requirement is probably accompanied by a private anguish and frustration that is very personal to her and cannot be controlled or packaged for general consumption. On the other hand, the Cain is also a tool for freedom. It is the very thing that gives her agency and enables her to move through the world with some stability and confidence. It is more than just a tool, it is now a part of who she is and an extension of her body. It is a serious breach of her autonomy to have someone else plan its usage and presence. It seems like a silent condemnation of this new side of herself. Thus, her actual emotions are a tumultuous mixture of defensiveness, wrath, and a furious, protective pride. For her, the proposal that the cane be replaced with a more ornamental model is not a workable solution, rather, it is an insult, implying that her reality is an unsightly thing that needs to be covered up. The purpose of putting it aside for photos is to erase a significant aspect of her present life for the sake of fiction, not to capture a lovely moment. Lily's feelings, which are based on her lived experience of her body, are genuine and unfiltered, and they violently conflict with the controlled, artificial reality that Phyllis is attempting to create. This internal conflict is brought to the surface throughout the wedding preparations, where she is forced to make a continual decision between sticking to a dishonest plan and speaking up for what feels like an exposed and vulnerable truth. This main tension is amplified and accelerated by the wedding preparations themselves. The atmosphere of wedding preparation is by its very nature one of intense scrutiny and hyperbolic importance. Every decision, from the sort of butter offered with the bread to the font on the place cards, is given a symbolic weight that it would not normally have. Casual discussions turn into logistical briefings, and small arguments turn into emotional crises. The conflict between strategy and emotion is at its worst in this pressure cooker. Lily's cane is a logistical snag that needs to be factored into the seating chart, the processional schedule, and the photographic storyboard. For Phyllis, the preparations are the carrying out of her plan. Her recommendations are made in the middle of a flurry of other choices, such as those regarding caterers, florists, and band playlists, so she probably doesn't understand why this one subject is so controversial. She sees it as a straightforward troubleshooting issue. But for Lily, getting ready for the wedding is a never-ending sequence of events where her independence and individuality are being gently threatened. Every family gathering, dress fitting, and conversation over the choreography for the ceremony turns into a possible point of contention. The strategy's incessant emphasis on the event's flawless visuals draws attention to her own perceived flaws. She is forced to repress her actual emotions in order to be a part of the day and not make a fuss, which only makes them more erratic and strong. There is no peaceful place for sincere, leisurely communication because of the hectic intensity of the preparation work. Instead, conversations are interrupted and broken up, which guarantees that misconceptions are not cleared up but rather made worse. The wedding, which ought to be a celebration of love and dedication, turns into a source of intense anxiety for Lily since she is expected to present a version of herself that fits the professional image of another person. In the end, the conflict between these two viewpoints, the strategically oriented and the genuinely emotional, is a battle for control of the narrative. Phyllis's skill is an attempt to steer the wedding day's story. Everything in her story is lovely, smooth, and happy. A cane that represents pain or limitation is one example of an element that must be digested and neutralized, its rough edges smoothed over until it matches the plot. Lily fights to claim her own tale, one that celebrates authenticity and admits its challenges. Her cane is an essential component of that narrative. It demonstrates her actuality, adaptability, and tenacity. She would be edited out of her own experience if it were removed or covered up. Who gets to narrate the story of this day and what version of the truth will be told to the world is the subject of the quiet conflict that rages over the place settings and the rehearsal dinner. The unsaid languages of control and caring further complicate this dynamic. Without a doubt, Phyllis would contend that her approach qualifies as caring. She is concerned about the wedding's success, the couple's happiness, and even Lily's comfort by attempting to avoid any embarrassing situations or unpleasantness. She believes that she is being helpful and sensible. However, because it is enforced without input and puts the occasion above the person, Lily feels that this kind of care is controlling. According to Lily, genuine care would entail finding out what she needs, how she feels, and how best to assist her. That would entail acknowledging the cane as a reality rather than an issue that has to be resolved. In its traditional form, wedding preparation frequently prioritizes a particular kind of performative care, the kind that results in flawless centerpieces, over the messy, intricate, and silent care that honors personal boundaries and sentiments. If there is a silent conflict, it will ultimately be resolved by a painful, difficult, and essential act of acknowledgement rather than the triumph of one viewpoint over the other. In order to understand Lily as a complete person with a legitimate and complicated emotional world, rather than as a variable in her wedding plan, Phyllis must take a step back from her position as the expert planner. She must realize that her knowledge does not include the inner workings of another human being. Instead of giving instructions, she must listen and swap strategies for empathy. It takes a great deal of bravery for Lily to express her actual sentiments in a hostile setting, to make her wants known without apologies, and to take the chance of being perceived as difficult in order to be accepted as herself. Only if the act can be temporarily halted may the wedding preparations, despite their artificiality, be the unlikely setting for the sincere connection. The real change happens when the cane is welcomed without criticism or planning, just as a part of the person they love, going down the aisle on a significant day, rather than when it is replaced with a more exquisite model or stashed away in a closet. Phyllis's ideal wedding is a fantasy, a lovely fabrication that only exists for a single day. What can come out of this fight is something far more lasting and valuable, a messy, honest, and hard-won understanding.